Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
The beach on the southeast side of Montague Island stretches for nearly 80 miles of pristine wilderness. At least it looks pristine from a few thousand feet up. As our helicopter descends towards the shore, big chunks of white styrofoam come into view.
You see all the big globs of styrofoam? That's all tsunami debris. Yeah, there's definitely, there's more styrofoam out here. There's no question.
Chris Pallister would know. He's president of the nonprofit Gulf of Alaska Keeper. The group has been cleaning up marine debris that washes onto Alaska's shores for 11 years. And when the tsunami debris began arriving last spring, their job got a whole lot harder. Pallister has visited Montague Island nearly a dozen times since then. And by the time we land and step onto the pebble beach, he's shaking his head in disgust.
I mean, you're basically standing in a landfill out here.
Pallister points to an area scattered with styrofoam bits smaller than packing peanuts.
So you see what's happening here with all the crushed up styrofoam now? This is what we're worried about. This styrofoam's just going to get all ground up. And you can see there's just be billions, trillions of little bits of styrofoam scattered all over everything.
The smaller it gets, the more concerning it is.
The smaller it gets, little pieces like this, it's virtually impossible to clean it up. I mean, to clean this up right here, you have to take out all this organic matter with it and, you know, extrapolate that all up and down this coastline. It's kind of an impossible job.
The trash is not just an eyesore. Pallister says voles, birds, and even bears are eating the styrofoam and plastic. He's also worried about chemicals. Among the debris, he finds containers that held kerosene, gas, and other petroleum products. Even the little containers worry him. Sifting through the trash, he picks up a small blue bottle and unscrews the cap to inspect its contents.
I have no idea what this was. It looks like just dish soap, maybe, laundry detergent, but it's empty, which is maybe not a good sign. But there's thousands of bottles like this all up and down the coast, from small household chemical items to drums full of chemicals, big industrial-sized drums.
Marine debris is not a new issue in Alaska, but the Japanese tsunami has magnified the problem many times over. Pallister says the tsunami debris doesn't have the visceral impact of the Exxon Valdez spill, with oiled animals and blackened coastlines, but he thinks in the long run it could be a bigger environmental disaster.
In a lot of ways, it's a lot worse than the oil spill, both in the geographic scope of it and the chemicals that are coming with it. And who knows what the impacts are going to be. And they're going to be really difficult to measure because they're spread out spatially. And, you know, it's going to be a very difficult scientific issue to sort that all out, I think.
Officially, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has only recorded 20 tsunami debris items that have landed in Alaska, but the agency will only confirm an object if it has a unique identifier that can be traced back to Japan. The state of Alaska does not use the same strict standard. Last summer, the state paid for an aerial survey to inspect 2,500 miles of Alaska's coastline. Elaine Bussey Floyd is acting director of the Division of Environmental Health. She says the survey identified tsunami debris all along the flight path from southern southeast up to Prince William Sound and out the Alaska Peninsula.
There was tsunami debris literally on every beach that was photographed. They took over 8,000 pictures, and it was more widespread and greater quantities than we even expected.
But so far, there has been minimal funding for cleaning up the debris. Governor Sean Parnell didn't include any tsunami debris funding in his budget. NOAA is figuring out how to distribute a $5 million gift from Japan, and Alaska's congressional delegation is working to get federal funds. But tsunami debris cleanup money was stripped from a bill for Hurricane Sandy relief that passed this week.
Look at this mess here.
Back on the beach, as the waves crash in, Chris Pallister says the debris could have serious impacts on fisheries and subsistence resources.
I don't know if it's being taken seriously enough. I don't think a lot of people that are going to be impacted by it know how bad it is right now. And until that gets out, maybe not much is going to happen. But I think we're kind of getting to the tipping point now where a lot of people in the state and federal agencies realize the gravity of this situation, and they're all working pretty hard now to get a handle on the scope of the problem and trying to develop funding sources. But as of yet, that hasn't happened. But it's a huge problem. It's going to take years to clean this mess up.
Pallister guesses it will take tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars to remove the debris. On this day, though, he has to leave it all on the island.
All right, we better go back.
Okay. We take off in the helicopter and head north along the beach. Pallister looks out the window at all the debris below and says it just goes on and on and on. On Montague Island, I'm Annie Fight. It's a brilliantly sunny day in early March, and Pallister's visiting Montague to get a handle on how much new debris washed up on the island over the winter. He also needs to check on debris his crew collected into heavy-duty bags called super sacks last summer. Pallister wants to make sure they held up over the punishing winter months. Pallister measures debris not by the pound, but by the ton. And on outer Montague Island, he estimates there's 20 to 30 tons of debris per mile. He guesses about half of it is from the tsunami and half is the usual marine trash that's been washing up in increasing amounts for decades. Last summer, he used funding from the legislature and other sources to begin cleaning up the first 3 miles of the island's coast.
There's another almost 70 miles to do on this shoreline. And we spent probably close to 60 days cleaning these few miles that we did here. So this is a huge, huge problem. This island is really bad.
The state identified Montague as one of 9 priority areas for tsunami debris cleanup. There are other hotspots from the southern tip of Southeast and as far west as the islands off of Kodiak. Japan gave the United States $5 million for cleaning up debris in all the West Coast states. So far, Alaska has received the biggest chunk of that money, $1 million. Alaska's situation is vast coastline, often inaccessible even to small landing craft, combined with huge quantities of debris. He says it will cost millions more just to clean Montague.
There's actually a lot of new stuff here. People always ask me, why do you do this? Why would you keep doing this if it keeps coming back? And I just tell them that you clean your kitchen counters. This is where we get our sustenance in this state. The intertidal area is where a lot of our fishing resources and all that came from. So I say this is our kitchen counter, and a rational person keeps their kitchen counters clean.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, and moving on to the satellite imagery. Yesterday, showing big area high pressure here out over the northern Gulf of Alaska. Mostly clear skies all along the North Gulf Coast, on down toward the Panhandle. Big band of moisture coming northward there out of the Pacific, across the Alaska Peninsula, then streaming northeastward into the interior with just mid and high level clouds through here, some moisture back out to the west, and a break behind that out there, and then snow showers way out there toward Shemya. Well, today, that not a lot of change. Still this area of moisture, although it's beginning to thin out a little bit here, but still some gusty winds, rain over the Alaska Peninsula, rain into the southwest interior, mixing with snow, and then mostly snow on up to the northeast, where northern Koyukuk Valley into the southern slopes of the Eastern Brooks Range picked up 3 to 6 inches of snow over the last day. Otherwise, just high clouds here across Copper River Basin, clouds Tanana Valley, high cirrus spread into Kodiak, and no change over the Panhandle, except there were areas of low clouds and fog with visibilities down to a quarter mile at times, mostly over the northern inside waters there, but not including Stevens Passage or Lynn Canal. And again, we can see southwest flow here coming out of the Russian Far East, and actually the next storm right through here will be tracking off to the northeast over the next couple of days, over the next actually 12 hours. This system out here, 1,009 millibars here. Otherwise, the weak trough from the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area, rain all the way down, much lighter though down toward the Alaska Peninsula, but still gusty winds ahead of that trough, anywhere from 25 to as high as 40 miles per hour there from Cold Bay over towards False Pass. Light winds, high pressure, keeping the fog in areas of northern Cook Inlet, Anchorage, and the Matanuska Valley. Not a lot of change going on there. Dense fog advisory continues for those areas through tonight. And otherwise, light winds, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, dry conditions, as I mentioned, down across the Panhandle. And for tonight, this system edges some snow by late tonight all the way eastward to the Alaska Range. Snow extends northeast across the Tanana Valley areas, but probably not making it to Delta, Tok, or Northway, but definitely from Eagle on up to the southern slopes of the Eastern Brooks Range. Look for occasional snow to continue tonight, maybe a few more inches up through here. Scattered snow showers back to the west, Seward Peninsula, and then that system bringing a warm front moisture into the west coast here, or the western Arctic coast, and possibly toward the Noatak Valley, with snow tonight, winds southwest, St. Lawrence Island starting to increase a little bit. Strong high pressure there near the Pueblos, 1,044 millibar center. And in between the two centers here, what's left of that trough, keeping a chance of light rain or snow tonight, maybe on Alaska, more likely though, Cold Bay, False Pass, King Cove, and those areas, but staying to the west of Sand Point. Variably cloudy, Kodiak Island, fairly light winds. Again, more fog in store for northern Cook Inlet and the Matanuska Valley, Anchorage area. Fog advisory continues for tonight. And out to the west, not too bad, pretty light winds, and just a few clouds here for the central Aleutians. A few more clouds out towards Shemya. And the southeast coast, again, tonight, areas low clouds and fog over some areas of the inside waters. Otherwise, don't look for a lot of change there. Light winds, dry conditions, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. And then for tomorrow, that moisture slides eastward here, most of it into Canada, but kind of lingering over the eastern interior 40-mile country from Eagle. Some of that probably will get down in toward the Tok and Northway areas, but it doesn't look like anything at all will get south of the Alaska Range, except maybe a few clouds here in the north, mostly clear over Cook Inlet, south central Alaska. Some of that fog may begin to dissipate tomorrow afternoon if you can get enough of a breeze coming down from the north or northeast. Otherwise, light winds continue for Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast. And look for a few more clouds now here over the Panhandle, with possibly even a little bit of drizzle right along the coast. Kodiak Island, mostly sunny, especially on the eastern side of the island and down to the south. And then some scattered snow showers possibly on the western slopes of the Aleutian Range. Same thing for the Alaska Range there. Up to the north, big storm coming in across the Chukchi Sea there, 1,008 millibar system. Good gales coming up. In fact, I believe there's a storm warning out for the marine area there from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, going for south winds 50 knots. Windy conditions, gales into the Bering Strait, down to St. Lawrence Island. Snow, blowing snow developing with that front out in advance of it. Otherwise, light winds, fair skies here for the Aleutians. Winds on the increase, though. Gales there for the far western Aleutians, with rain just edging its way in toward Attu Island. And then for Thursday, That system expands eastward a little bit there, so look for the rain to cover the eastern Aleutians, and gale force winds continue out here. Small craft advisories back to the west, becoming even lighter toward the Fox Islands. A lot of cloudiness, fog, drizzle, all through this zone here, but the heavier rain staying well out to the west. Now we have a really strong ridge of high pressure here right along the west coast down into the Bristol Bay area, Alaska Peninsula. Central pressures there at the surface up over 1,050 millibars, which means it's up over 31 inches on mercury on a barometer. So other than that, fair skies with light winds through the area here, even the eastern Bering Sea or the Pribilofs, winds starting to pick up out of the southeast there later in the day, late in the day or toward evening, but pretty gusty winds there coming in for the eastern Arctic coast. Look for certainly gales there with all the snow they've had. Tightening gradient across all of the eastern interior, so look for blowing snow to develop, greatly reducing visibilities up there. Same sort of pattern occurring here over the from the Tanana Valley, White Mountains down possibly into the Alaska Range, with periods of snow, areas of blowing snow, reducing visibilities. All these areas like Northway, for example, maybe Delta, but offshore flow, downsloping conditions keep it dry and mostly clear here for the North Gulf Coast, but winds increasing, especially through such as the Copper River Delta, north winds on the increase, channeled areas Prince William Sound, as well as south central Alaska, Seward, winds on the increase, more wind for Kodiak Island as well out of the northwest, much colder air coming down southward as well, and also spreading into the northern southeast coast, going for gale force northerlies now for Lynn Canal with possible gusts to 60 knots Thursday afternoon. Freezing spray up in those areas as a very cold air mass settles in over the northern panhandle. Low pressure to the south will actually bring a chance of some moisture in across the southern areas. And temperatures down that way today, mostly in the upper 20s to upper 30s, 39 Annette and Sitka, 34 at Klawock, 27 at Wrangell, 28 Petersburg, that same temperature matched at Juneau, 25 in Yakutat, 22 Cordova, 18 at Valdez. Copper River Basin, around 10 below zero there on the central and east side, but Gunsight up to 25, and 12 in Palmer, 5 Kenai, -2 at Willow, and a little warmer there at Talkeetna with 7. Otherwise, eastern interior, we had -13 at Northway, Chicken 15 below, and then 14 above at Fairbanks. And you can see temperatures still really contrasted from east to west here into the lower to mid 30s, back out to the west with McGrath at 31, and Galena carried rain just about all day up there today with lower 30s up to the north. Let's see, that's Bettles, snow, 29 degrees, 27 there at Anatuvik, 27 with light snow also at Fort Yukon, same temperature at Beaver. North Slope down considerably, cooler than they were, at least they're below freezing, 21 at Umiat this afternoon, and it looks like mostly teens out along the Arctic coast, but Kaktovik still pushed up to 23. 20s for the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound area, St. Lawrence Island, and the Yukon Delta. Out to the west, we had mid to upper 20s here for the Pribilofs after light wind, mostly clear sky night, dropped temperatures down into the teens there. 40 degrees with increasing winds there towards Shemya. Lower 30s for the central Aleutians and 40 degrees for the Fox Islands, Nikolsky on Alaska, 42 at False Pass, near 40 for Cold Bay. And then temperatures gradually cooling into the mid-20s up there over Bristol Bay with 26 at King Salmon. Kodiak, 30 degrees above zero at mid-afternoon. Lows for tonight, teens and 20s. For the Panhandle, below zero Copper River Basin, eastern Tanana Valley like Tok and Northway, 8 above at Eagle, staying above zero here for the Tanana Valley, actually in the teens. Single numbers to maybe 5, 6, 7 below zero. Susitna Valley, areas of anywhere it's clear actually. Upper 20s Kodiak Island, 20s southwest coast, 31 forecast low for Savunga, and then 20s for the greater Seward Peninsula area, single numbers up along the Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow, upper 30s here, Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula, lower 30s Bristol Bay, upper 30s Kodiak Island. Single numbers teens, Brooks Range northward, mostly teens to lower 20s possibly here over the central interior, with mid to upper 20s back toward the west. And 20 to 30 degrees here for south central Alaska, out along the coast up into the mid 30s. And for IFR type weather tomorrow, there's a swath here coming across the Kuskokwim Valley, up to the Alaska Range, northeastward across the central Tanana Valley toward either side of Eagle. Narrow band up there along the Brooks Range with the continuing light snow. Marginal VFR on the increase here for the northeast Gulf of Alaska up to the coastline. Probably staying south of Yakutat though. Marginal conditions late tonight into early tomorrow morning. Eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, mostly VFR out here to the west. And then for tomorrow afternoon, marginal VFR, all of the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and just southwest of Kodiak Island, expecting marginal conditions in Bristol Bay. IFR, south side of the Seward Peninsula, and the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range areas. Otherwise, pretty good VFR through much of the interior, and maybe losing the low clouds and fog, or at least a decreasing trend will begin late tomorrow afternoon for Cook Inlet, and then marginal VFR right up along the coast and occasionally pushing inland. Passes, Anaktuvik, marginal for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR through tomorrow. Rainy though, becoming marginal, especially on the western entrance. That's where the lowest flying conditions would be. And for windy, go with IFR there. That moisture looks like it will spill southward here, far enough south of the Alaska Range that it'll probably even make the southern entrance could be IFR as well. And then Isabel looks VFR, Mentesta possibly marginal, and Tanita though VFR, Portage definitely VFR flying tomorrow, Chilkoot and White open for another day. And for the freezing levels late tonight, early tomorrow morning, 8,000 feet up over the northeast Gulf of Alaska here with 2,000 feet inland, but the whole pattern having shifted eastward from what we saw yesterday. And icing, not a whole lot to speak of. Increasing icing threats up here, St. Lawrence Island to the northwest coast. And the upper jet stream here, ridging building to the west. The ridging over the Gulf of Alaska beginning to collapse a little bit. Southwest flow 60 to 100 knots across southern Alaska. And at 9,000 feet, strong southwest winds, 30 to 50 knots right up across the western Seward Peninsula, falling back to about 40 knots there on the Arctic coast, and then 25 over the northern interior areas. Southerlies 45 to 50 knots over the western Aleutians, 30-knot winds Kamishak Bay out of the west across the Barren Island areas. Otherwise fairly light here for the Panhandle. And then 3,000 feet, same pattern, 5 to 10 knots for the southeast coast, 15 knots across southern Alaska. Much windier though for the Arctic coast, back across the western North Slope, right through here to St. Lawrence Island, 40 to 45 knots there, 30 to 40 knots farther north. Westerlies 20 to 30 coming into Nunivak Island and the Yukon Delta. Southerlies 45 to 50 out to the west. Turbulence, occasional moderate chop, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait, northeastward there to Barrow. Smoother over the interior, maybe a little bumpy here, Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula at Kamishak Bay, and moderate chop below 5,000 feet from Amchitka to Shemya. And looking at the icing conditions here, again, open, sea ice-free water right into the Bering Strait. 1 to 3/10 really opened up here on the southeastern portion of Norton Sound. And the ice along the southwest coast, Bristol Bay, should tend to increase when the winds go light and become more northerly. Otherwise, marine forecast, light northwesterlies for the coast tomorrow. Inside waters, north to northwest, 10 to 15, increasing to 25 for northern Lynn Canal. And then 40-knot winds, gusts to 60, freezing spray, Lynn Canal. And then southeast 15 by contrast for Clarence Strait. Northeast 20 to 25 on the north coast. Prince William Sound, north 15, 20 to 30 knot northwesterlies from the North Gulf Coast, 25 to 30 also there for Kamishak Bay and the Barrens. Cook Inlet, look for winds north of the Forelands picking up to 20 knots, 30 knots south of the Forelands. Good gales, Kamishak Bay Across the Barren Islands, 40 to 45 knots. Northwest 40 there, even on the east side of Kodiak Island. North 30, much higher gusts there for Prince William Sound, and gales for the North Gulf Coast. Bristol Bay, north 10 tomorrow, north to northeast at 20 for the Alaska Peninsula, so not too bad wind-wise. And for Thursday, 25-knot winds from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, otherwise northeast 15 to 20 for the peninsula. Out in the Aleutians, full gales here, west of Adak all the way to Shemya, 35 to 40 knots, diminishing here to just 15 to 20 over the eastern Aleutians. Thursday, southeast 20 to 25, 30-knot winds, Adak and Atka. Gales continue from Adak to Shemya. Southwest coast, 15 to 20-knot winds tomorrow. Light winds for the Pribilofs, gales coming into St. Lawrence Island, and then those drop back to 20 knots on Thursday. Pretty light variable winds here along the southwest coast with that strong high pressure in over the area. Southeast late in the day to 25 for St. Paul. And for tomorrow, again, that front, pretty strong front approaching. Storm force south to southwesterlies there from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort with good 45-knot winds on the eastern coast, dropping back to 20 knots there over toward Kaktovik. Their winds increase the next day there, 35 to 40 knots. Gales, eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, 30 knots central coast. Brisk wind advisories on the west side, and then high pressure really dropping those winds off here from Cape Beaufort to the Bering Strait. For tonight, again, area snow through the interior like this, gradually pushing eastward, more so up north of the range. Storm, again, snow, blowing snow, strong winds coming into the northwest up there. Less snow of this feature here, but lingering throughout the afternoon over the eastern interior. No change from the North Gulf Coast. May lose a fog for Cook Inlet. More fog for the Panhandle. Next day, chance of snow. Southern southeast coast, colder, stronger winds up to the north. Snow, blowing snow coming southward in surges across the eastern interior as strong high pressure builds out to the west. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
There are many ways to give to this station, but the easiest way is to become a sustaining member. Here's how it works.